Married at First Sight and Afterparty, season 18, episode 8. So they are 17 days into these marriages. This episode definitely had some moments where, if you're not familiar with the African American community, they might have gotten past you or you missed the significance of what was said. I'm going to point out those moments, plus share a little gossip about one of the cast members. Hi, I'm Tamara, and this is Tamara Lynette Tells. On the first segment of Afterparty, Keisha featured Karla, David, and Stasha from the San Diego season. And for the second segment, she had Chi and Camille. I thought Stasha did a great job. This was an episode that had me fussing at the screen. Let's get into it, starting with Emem and Chi. They were getting ready for the little housewarming party. He asked his homie, aka MM, what was on the menu, and she told him she wanted to serve fish tacos, but she's never made them before. Wasn't a new skill she had time to learn and didn't want to make anybody sick, so she ordered food from a local joint. Okay, fine. He said, I could have made the tacos. Oh, really? All it is making some fish, breaking it up, and putting it in a taco. Oh, I didn't know you wanted to make them. I could have cooked everything. Did you say you wanted to cook? It's not a big deal. I could have cooked. Did you tell me you wanted to cook, though? No. See, that's the thing. No communication, but it's not too late. If you want to make the tacos, I can get you everything you need to make the tacos. I didn't say I wanted to make them. Chi, this is a housewarming party, not a petty party. You are behaving like a passive-aggressive kid. Absolutely ridiculous. This entire exchange was a reflection on you and your lack of communication skills. Fighting over tacos you didn't even want to make? What chapter is this in your little book, Letters to My Future Wifey? On Afterparty, he called this a misunderstanding. He was busy with work, so he wasn't supposed to be there setting up for the party. Emin planned everything, and when he showed up, he asked what he could help with, and she had everything together. Stasha told him this moment felt passive aggressive and the back and forth was unnecessary. Keisha said maybe MM took the lead on this and planned everything to take this off your plate since you were busy. Then she asked Chi what he's learned by watching himself on the show so far. That I'm more of a doer, but there are a lot of words spoken between us. I think what he meant by this is he prefers to do things to get to know each other, opposed to being asked a bunch of questions. We'll get into this in a minute. He also said he can see his nervous energy, pretty much sees it throughout the season. Okay, so let's get back to the party prep conversation. They are getting ready for the party. MM says her cousin is going to be there. The same man who was holding Chi-Chi's feet to the fire during the wedding reception. So we know it's going to be good. Chi-Chi didn't enjoy his conversation with her cousin, so he still feels a little salty about it. Now, to me, it feels like Chi-Chi is not used to being asked about or confronted about his personality traits. It feels like he's intimidated by MM, her home, her family, the cameras, the show, the fish tacos, and he's lashing out instead of using some of those words he wrote in his love letters to his future homie. So the party starts and everyone is sitting in the living room talking. MM says she had a good time at the honeymoon and she feels safe to express herself without what she's saying being thrown in her face later. If Chi makes you feel safe, girl, I can't imagine what type of jerks you've dated in the past. I am so sorry because I am not seeing a safety net in this brother. So Chi said, I asked for someone who was vulnerable, ambitious, and a partner. I don't want the fake. And the family was like, okay, we hear you. Then MM's cousin asked them to describe each other in 5 words. And Chi said, beautiful, very passionate, ambitious, and a little aggressive. Okay, this is one of the moments I was talking about at the beginning of the video. If you don't know, then you don't know. That word, aggressive, was a huge slap in the face. Historically, when Black women speak up, assert themselves, or express passion, we've been labeled as aggressive, angry, or difficult, whereas similar behavior from other ethnicities or genders is seen as being confident or passionate. So Chi calling aggressive has a negative connotation, reducing her to being a character like an angry Black woman rather than a person who is allowed to express anger or passion. it's kind of considered a racial slur. You could see it in the faces of Emem's friends when he said it. You could see it in the faces of Stasha, Camille, and Keisha when they played the scene back on Afterparty. As someone who is an educator and prides himself on being a light in the lives of struggling youth, he should have known better than to call his homie aggressive, especially when he explained his reason for calling her that. He said he's from the South and I'm used to just enjoying each other and not asking a bunch of questions. I'm used to a laid back person, but she's not that. Well, she asked for a kind man and you are not that. You don't even seem fun. So between Afterparty and this episode, he complained about Emem asking questions. He just wants to get to know each other by hanging out, even though he doesn't have time to. But even when they do hang out, he doesn't want questions. How do you get to know someone without asking questions? Is that what you teach your students? If you don't understand the lesson you're being taught, don't ask questions. Just take some time to get to know your teacher and the answers will come. Chi-Chi, you're not making any sense. Later on, when Emem was talking to the other wives, she said when she asked Chi-Chi what he wants from a wife, he called her aggressive. Okay, so what do you want in the marriage? Aggressive. She can't ask one question without him calling her aggressive. No wonder this guy is single. So on Afterparty, Chi-Chi said he felt like the housewarming party was being manipulated by Emem. They had a similar conversation in bed, and I assume he's talking about the 5 ways they describe each other. Then when he was sitting with her friends, they asked him the same exact question. He thinks she told them to ask that question, so he felt she was being aggressive. Now, when Keisha asked him if he could do that moment over, what would he say instead? I believe the man said what he said and he meant what he said, but he reluctantly said he would have used the word assertive. Okay, so back to the conversation of Emem and Chi-Chi given 5 words to describe each other. Emem described Chi-Chi as smart, laid back, calm, creative, and what's the opposite of aggressive? Oh, nonchalant. Now, Chi-Chi had the nerve to say, I don't like the connotation of being called nonchalant. Her friend said, I don't like the connotation of aggressive. He said, it ain't about you. They asked me. Chi-Chi was coming for everybody. I think his fear of Emem's cousin had him coming into this conversation way too hot. Now, the cousin is very direct, strong, and fearless, whereas Chi-Chi seems to be a little reactive, lacking confidence, and overly defensive. So the cousin said it sounds like their traits complement each other. Some guys like aggressive women. He said, I asked you earlier, can you handle her? You just have to learn how to handle her. But if she keeps describing you as chill, she has no choice but to be aggressive. Of course, Chi-Chi didn't like that answer. To the confessional camp, Emem said she has done a lot of work on herself before coming into this marriage and really worked on her vulnerability. So based on how she's approached this marriage, she's shocked to be called aggressive. So they broke off to speak to each other's folks, and Emem's cousin told Chi-Chi, you have to go out and do things together in order to get to know each other. And Chi-Chi said, I work long hours and she works even longer. So y'all don't have much time to spend together to go out, and you don't want her to ask you questions. So what is your plan to get to know this woman? Oh, that's right. There is no plan because you don't want to know this woman. The cousin said, you sound like a bore. This cousin. Chi-Chi said, I'm really boring. So at this point, it was starting to look like a sword fight to see who has the biggest disco stick. The cousin asked if they talked about putting each other on their bank accounts, medical insurance, whatever his thoughts on that. Chi-Chi said, everybody don't think like that. Yeah, especially if you put your wife in the homie zone. But it's going to be difficult for them to have this conversation because he doesn't even want to answer these questions. So Chi-Chi said, look, I'm here for her. I'm going to respect her. I'm not here to please y'all. No one here is pleased. And Emem will not be pleased to hear you disrespected her people like this. You are so rude. There's a clear problem here. And at the moment, Emem seems a little too in her, I'm married and this is my husband to see you in danger, girl. Now, I mentioned I had some gossip about one of the cast members, and it's about Chi-Chi. Someone who claims to have dated him posted a statement about him on Reddit. I believe it was about a month ago, but I wanted to wait and see how he carries himself in this relationship before I put a negative comment out there that could taint the waters or unfairly paint him in a bad light. Anybody can post on Reddit, right? But He's already out here looking crazy. So let's go. Here's what they had to say. I dated Chi Chi on and off for 2 years. I am so happy the world gets to see who he is. And unfortunately, he's a very lost person looking for external validation. Notice how the first thing out of his mouth is his book. He's been pushing this book for years. In his mind, it's better than it actually is. In his mind, he's so amazing when in fact, he's a serial bull schnauzer dater who is looking for fame. He reels women in with his sob story of how he's looking for a wife. He's not. Ask the women in Houston who have dated him. He used to talk about being on the show back when we dated. He's a Sagittarius with no direction or intention to marry. He's emotionally cold and void and needs a reality check. And check. This poor woman needs to run. Shame on Married at First Sight for even casting him. The only thing he can offer any woman is penis. He's well endowed, and I won't take that from him. But other than that, he's trash. He's more in love with himself than anyone else. Okay, little TMI on his package there. But clearly, this person is bitter and has a problem with Sagittarius men. What do you think? Is this person legit? Moving on to Camille and Thomas. Now, for some reason, they had their housewarming party at Thomas's brother's house. They called it a pool party. Anyway, once again, but as a group this time, Camille talked about how Thomas isn't her normal type. Finally, somebody asked her what her normal type is because it appears as though the experts didn't. She said Thomas is lighter skinned than the guys she normally dates, and the guys she dates are loud showboaty types. Oh my God, this explains it all. Your girl was looking for Kevin Hart and they gave her Lionel Richie. Meanwhile, Thomas's people said Camille is different from the women he normally dates because she's more genuine and she's the first one who doesn't seem to want anything from him and not trying to make him someone he isn't. I don't know about that last part. If Camille could hit him with a hip hop swag stick that could make him all of a sudden roll up with his pants sagging, hat to the back, cornrows, and a diamond tooth, I think she would. So when they broke off to talk to each other's people, Thomas's brother asked Camille to explain what she means when she says they have cultural differences. She said Thomas told her about a bar he goes to, and it's known for having incidences related to race. And that's where the disconnect kind of happened for her. Now, I've heard the Chicago bar scene is kind of segregated, meaning if you tell someone what bars you hang out at, a person can tell a lot about you. Now, where are my Chicago peeps at? Let us know in the comments if that's true. So when they got back to their place, Thomas said it was interesting to learn what type of guy she normally dates, that they weren't light-skinned. And she said, you thought I dated light-skinned guys? Why? I don't know. Maybe because you are? So to the confessional cam, she's like, huh? He thought I only dated light-skinned guys because I'm light-skinned? We are going to have to work through this. It's a fair assumption, ma'am. I feel like Camille is not aware that she comes across as a card carrying, minivan driving, loose clothes wearing, DIY crafting suburbanite. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but she's not giving the Cardi B vibe she seems to think she's giving. Anyway, she asked Thomas if he's ever dated a black woman, and he said his girlfriend in college was black and long term. So later, they sat down with Camille's sister to talk about, yeah, you guessed it, Thomas not being Camille's normal type. They had a conversation about how they all identify as black people, trying to understand race and identity. Her sister said it's different for black women than black men because black women in society feel the need to strongly identify as being a black woman first, and specifically, whereas black men like her brother are able to lean on being a guy. Oh, okay, so there's a lot to unpack about this scene, but I'm just going to scratch the surface. First, I strongly disagree that black men can just walk out of the house as a man and not be concerned about his blackness. Like, oh, where has she been? These two biracial women trying to school a biracial man about what it's like to be a black woman felt a little odd. I'm not going to lie. Because all three of them are a representation of there being more than one way to be black and look black. So why are Camille and her sister taking Thomas to black school? But with that said, I do give Camille some grace for two reasons. First, I'll say what no one on the show wants to say out loud or on camera. Camille feels like she's dating a white guy. And because of that, he doesn't know what it's like growing up in a Black household, along with all the unspokens and nuances that come with growing up in one. And these are things she didn't have to explain when she dated Kevin Hart because they both understood. So I do get that. And I also get it's difficult to explain it because it's more of a feeling, and certain things that should be a given aren't in Thomas's case. She has said this isn't all she's focusing on. She wants to get to know him, and he's a very nice man. The second reason I give her grace is because this is a TV show, and we know this show in particular, the producers love to beat a problem or negative situation into the ground. Okay, Camille, while everyone is gathered around the pool, let's have you talk about why Thomas is different from the men you normally date. And action. Okay, Thomas's brother, ask Camille why she feels Thomas is different from the men she normally dates. And action. Okay, Camille's sister, why don't you explain to Thomas why Camille feels he's different from the men she normally dates? And action. Honestly, I kind of doubt this is as big of a deal as the show is making it out to be. However, if Camille and Thomas don't have any other challenges to share with producers, the producers are going to wear out this storyline until decision day. Madison and Allen. Now, Madison dragged Allen to a workout class she allegedly goes to when she just wants to do cardio. I say allegedly because producers probably had to find a place that would allow them to empty out the majority of the room in order for them to shoot. Anyway, Allen is literally trying his butt off to make this relationship work. Okay, that didn't make sense, but you know what I'm trying to say. This class just about killed the man, and of course, Madison laughed at him. To the confessional cam, she was saying, I'm having a better time watching Allen try to suffer through the class, but he's doing great. What has she done that Allen enjoys? Why is this all about him trying to prove to her that he could be the king of squats? After the class, Allen said he appreciates the positive influence he's had on him in terms of working out. But is that all she brings to the table? Who is Madison without a dumbbell in her hand? So anyway, Allen said he wanted to check in on Madison and ask how she's doing. I'm happy you are feeling better and feeling motivated by me. Okay, but what does that have to do with how you're feeling about the relationship? Like, care to explain why you're not trying and don't want anything to do with this man? So the next morning, she brought him breakfast in bed. Fine. I doubt it was her idea, though. Then said, I know you just woke up, but I'm having a spa day here with the girls, so I need you to leave. I don't know why she found that so funny. It was just really weird and awkward. So it turns out she was throwing Allen a surprise birthday party, which was really nice. But how much do you want to bet this was a producer's idea? And all Madison had to do was help them put up the decorations. They took care of everything else. He seemed surprised by the party. Her friends asked, now that he's gotten to know Madison, can he see why they were matched? And he said, yes, she's beautiful, thoughtful, emotionally intelligent, and has her schnitzel together. He also said he's a slower pace than her. He's more of a let's screw the gym today and snuggle on the couch and watch Netflix type of guy. I feel like Allen is like an average guy who's no stranger to the gym, but doesn't go 8 times a week. Madison told Allen's friends she needs to feel that they are compatible at the core. She said she hasn't gotten much feedback from him in terms of things he may not love about her. She said, it won't hurt my feelings. I can take it. So his friend said, men overlook a lot of things, but what is important, he's going to communicate with you. Just because he hasn't picked you apart like you've done to him doesn't mean you need to complain about him not doing it to you. So the next morning, the group met up to play flag football led by Madison. Madison said when it came time for Allen to get up, he was grumpy and didn't want to go. She was upset that he wasn't there. I bet Allen was like, listen, I've gone to the gym 13 times in 3 days to please you and your metro man with muscular thighs dreams. My arms are sore, my calves are on fire, and it hurts to blink. I'm going to sleep. Turn off the lights before you close the door behind you, boo-boo. Michelle and David. So Michelle has turned over a new leaf. In this episode, she wasn't just a jerk. She was a jerk who smiled. To the confessional cam, she said she's looking forward to their party because she and David do better when they are in a group setting. There's less pressure. Less pressure or other people to talk to that don't live in a basement. So meanwhile, David was fussing because he left a note for Michelle and she didn't respond with a text or something to say, "You have a good day too." So he texted her good night and hasn't gotten a response. And she was like, "Well, you didn't let me know you were not going to come back last night if we're calling each other out." Interesting. I wonder what their living situation is. Are they taking turns living in the shared apartment or stay there every once in a while, depending on the production shooting schedule or something? Anyway, David said, "I'm not trying to call you out, just wondering the best way for us to communicate is." She said, "I don't know. We have completely different schedules." David, stop. Just stop. She's not going to wake up on Tuesday and suddenly want to be your baby mama. Let it go. Fast forward to their housewarming. Michelle was talking to David's friend and carrying on about how hard she's worked to get to where she's at, her lifestyle, and the place she lives. Her place seemed like an average, decent apartment to me, but I'm not going to knock it because it sounds like she grew up in Little House on the Prairie. So her place is a big accomplishment for her. But of course, she had to complain about David's lifestyle, and his friend took her to living in the basement school. He said, "If you're renting, you're losing. How much are you paying in rent?" None of your business. Michelle answered him though. She said, "I think I'm at $23.50. So you're paying $23.50 a month, and when you're done renting, you walk away with nothing. I own and I'm paying $1,200. David is stacking money so he can buy." Is he really though? I've heard him say he's paying off his bills and student loans, but nothing about having a fat savings account. Michelle even mentioned earlier on in the season that it doesn't sound like he's tucking much money away. Anyway, in the end, David's friend had her wheels turn a little bit, and she said, "That's fair." Then he called her out because David was saying he's trying hard but not getting anything in return from her. She owned it. She knows she's not trying. So the friend says, eventually, if he keeps getting nothing, he'll shut down. And she said, "Oh, no, I don't want that." Don't you, though? Don't you want him to leave you alone? I think you do. So later, David was making dinner for Michelle, and he was talking about how his calves hurt from doing legs with Madison. And Michelle was like, "When did you work out with Madison?" "Oh, like 6 in the morning. I haven't done legs in a minute, and now I'm walking around here like Bambi." That's funny. Michelle was not amused. I think David threw the working out with Madison out there on purpose to see how she would react. It clearly bothered her, which is strange considering she is disgusted by this man. On Afterparty, Keisha asked David how often he works out with Madison, and he said 2 or 3 days a week. And Wancho works out with her too. Okay, Madison over there getting her Tybo on with everybody's husband. Oh, it was funny on Afterparty. Keisha gave David a hard time about not cleaning up his place for Michelle's visit. He said he was keeping it real and he's hardly ever home, and that he owned a bar and kept some of the things. So if anything looks old, it's probably worth about $2,000. From what I understand, his parents owned the bar and he was the bartender. But who knows? Maybe he eventually put some of his own dollars towards it too. Karla was funny on Afterparty. They were talking about Michelle's lack of communication or something, and Karla said, "I would have stopped talking to her a long time ago. Like, I don't have time for that." Keisha started busting up laughing. Karla said when the girls hang out with Michelle, she's engaged, laughing, and they have a good time. She says they talk about their relationships, and Michelle mentions her lack of attraction to David, but she's not telling them how she's behaving like a pill. At this point, I believe both David and Michelle are playing games. Based on what happened last season, I wouldn't be surprised if it came out on the reunion special that these two decided to pretend to be friendly towards each other so they could both enjoy the apartment, free excursions, and money. Meanwhile, there's nothing to see here, folks. Karla and Wancho, they decided to have a toga party. What stood out to me listening to these two talk to each other's friends is that Karla's love language is affection and Wancho's is acts of kindness. Now, Wancho isn't very affectionate and low-key kind of made fun of the idea of cuddles and kissing. Wancho said he has 2 jobs, works out regularly, and it's not like I forget about her. Here you go again with the forgetting about Karla. It's not like I forget about her. I just have full days. Which sounds like an excuse to throw out there because he's not interested in Karla. If he thought she could possibly be the love of his life and she was all he thought about, his 2 gigs would not stop him from spending quality time with her. I believe Karla will eventually get frustrated because he's not attracted to her. I think he generally thinks she's pretty, but just not his type. This was an interesting episode, but at the end of the day, I'm not seeing a couple to root for. However, I believe they will deliver on some interesting drama. So, I'll be back for more. But in the meantime, that's all I have for now. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in my next video.